You are now listening to The Young God, a podcast for the gods. Side B of my conversation with Ronald Nzimora took a dark turn when we started to talk about Nigeria and its woes. You know how that goes. Him being the elder statesman, he had a very matter-of-fact view on Nigeria's history and why we are the way we are. We talked about Biafra and what might be the bright side to it, if you can imagine that. If you're curious about that sort of thing, you're going to want to hear what Ronald had to say. He gave a real crash course on Igbo culture and what it takes to thrive in Nigeria. And it all started with a simple question. Why is Nigeria like this?
Nigeria is like this because of injustice. It's just injustice.
Okay.
Right? There are swaths of this country that have been unduly taken advantage of. Right? Like swaths of this country, like especially the southern part of the country. And the northern part, because it's not even exempted, to be honest. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's mostly the North doing perpetrating the injustice on the South, and also the North perpetrating the injustice on themselves, right?
Yeah.
Because it is I was born in the North, right? I was born in Zaria, and grew up in the North. I can speak the language actually. Grew up in the North, and it is crazy how in 2022 you still have kids who are called Almajiris. In 2022, roam the streets, uncared for, unattended to, basically with no hope. They are just born and that's it. No school, no hope, no parental care, no governmental care, nothing. You are just condemned to a life of servitude. It's crazy, right?
Yeah. I think
that's the form of injustice.
It's worse than servitude, if you ask me. I would describe it as a hellish state. And a hellish state is one where you're confined to ignorance, one. You can't think beyond your mere survival, and then you're turned into a beast of burden. That's a hellish state. And that's what they're in. Yeah.
I saw someone tweet about it last week. I was like, this is 2022 for God's sake. This is 2022 for God's sake. Right? And, it's not just that. I mean, there was a civil war fought in this country. First of all, people from a particular part of the country, our part of the country, were slaughtered in their hundreds of thousands. Slaughtered. So they move back home, and then you bring war to them, and now kill 3 million more. And then you systematically underdevelop their place. You keep their place militarily occupied since 1970. It's injustice.
Yeah.
It's like the highest form of injustice. And then there's also the wealth of the country is mined from, and they can't fish, they can't farm, they can't cook. They basically now have to survive, despite the fact that all of this wealth is taken away from their lands, and they get to see almost zero, while their resources that they have to rely on to even stay alive is being devastated. Injustice. The problem of Nigeria is injustice. That is why Nigeria is.
Well said. And let me pick your brain for a moment. Let me help you. Let's think very conceptually about this now. Biafra, right? I often like to say that, there's a bright side to everything if you can see it.
Yeah.
So I look at slavery, for example. slavery, the bright side to it is this rich black culture that we now enjoy. The world now enjoys.
Yeah.
We look at things like the Holocaust and World War II. I'm looking at the rich Asian culture that we now enjoy in terms of K-dramas, K-pop, anime. They're all a byproduct of, America's occupation and demilitarization of Japan and all these parts of Asia, right? I'm looking at, even in the Bible, if you go to the Bible, I'm looking at what happened to the Israelites. And, you can see how a very bad injustice or a very bad thing worked out for good years later, decades later. So looking at Biafra and what we Igbos went through during that period and the loss and the injustice, what can you imagine is the bright side to that for us? If we can look at it that way, if we can move forward, how can we see the bright side to this?
The bright side for me is being able to rise again. Only a few people eventually got to, who were able to find their bank documents, eventually got 20 pounds. Right? But if you take the Southeast right now and you compare it to large sections of the country, the Southeast is a lot better off.
Yeah.
And it's not because of the government, it's because of the people of the Southeast.
Yeah.
It's because of the people. So the bright side is our people learned how to overcome adversity. It's a great trait to have as a human being.
Yeah.
Right? Our people, and then it also made our people to travel. That's why there's practically no country in the world where you're not going to find an Igbo man.
Yeah.
So put this thing in our people to actually go out, and we sort of have it in our DNA now. Surviving the worst of situations, the worst of situations, and come good again. So it's a great trait to have.
Yeah.
However, it is a trait that we now need to learn how to harness and make it even more productive.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Also now take this trait and know how to come together as a collective and make it even more productive. Because the other side of it is that it has made us very, very individualistic. So we've gone away from our culture of communal living and community, being very, very individualistic. So now everybody's doing their own thing, their own way.
Yeah.
We need to get back to that trait and culture of community, so that we can together. Because I know that, if our people were able to do this in about 40 years, right? Yeah. Imagine, and on an individual basis, imagine what we can do together.
Right. Do you think the whole boy system that we have in Igbo land is also a byproduct of the traumas we suffered via Biafra? Or has that always been our thing?
No, it hasn't. We've been a trading people, right? We've been a trading people, but with the advent of colonialism, we started being more of we started having an educated class. The world decimated our educated class so much, right? Yeah. A lot of our educated class. And the only way, the very quick way that our people saw to be able to get back on their feet was to go back, to default back to our culture of being a trading people.
Right.
So they defaulted back to trading instead of going to school again. They defaulted back to trading. And the way to now lift themselves, and not just themselves, but their brothers and their siblings, that was how the one boy culture, it's been there, right? But it wasn't like as popular as it is that it became over there. Yeah. It became really popular from the 1970s. Okay. Right? And that's why, if you notice, if you know how the different markets in different cities operate, you notice that people from a particular town or a particular group of town do a particular kind of business.
Yeah.
So, for example, people from Agolo are bread makers. They own bakeries a lot.
Okay.
Loads and loads and loads. Right? People from Nnewi, obviously, spare parts and motor spare parts and motorcycle spare parts and all. People from Achina, the furniture business. People from there's this town that I'm trying to remember. So you notice that, and it's because people go out and start a business, then they bring their brothers bring their cousins bring their siblings, and then people from a particular town, they're all practically doing the same kind of thing.
Yeah. And Aba is a fashion town.
Aba is the fashion town, exactly.
Yeah.
Aba is the fashion town. So you notice that. So it is, and it's a great culture. Don't get me wrong. It's a great culture. And again, the reason why it's also a good thing is that it's a way to spread wealth. I'm big on wealth. I'm big on everybody having the one boy system is a superb way of transferring wealth. Yeah. What we need to do is to figure out a way to strengthen it. Now, I don't know. I'm very, very wary about using legalese or legal means, bringing it into that culture, right? Because it can very easily spoil the whole thing. But there has to be a way. Maybe it's something our people have to figure out
themselves.
Time for shameless plug.
I don't do this full time, even though many think I do. When I'm not podcasting, I'm solving creative problems for my clients. I develop brands, I coach, consult, and offer creative direction. And I'm damn good at it too. My unique point of view can be a real asset to your vision, whether you are rebranding or launching a new campaign. To see my work or book a consultation, shoot me an email, avocreative.ng@gmail.com. avocreative.ng@gmail.com. Let's make magic together. What is the mentality needed to thrive in Nigeria? If you're telling someone, these young people coming up now, everybody's like so disillusioned and, they're jaded about how Nigeria is and how difficult it is. But I feel like if you're here, you might as well, when in Rome, you have to like figure out how to, adapt. Yeah. So what would you say is the mentality needed to thrive in Nigeria and go the distance?
The first mentality is to understand that the government doesn't owe you shit. And they never will owe you shit. That is the number one thing to understand about Nigeria. That in Nigeria, you're on your own.
Yeah.
I mean, other countries, people look up to government to solve. In Nigeria, you can't do that.
Yeah.
You just cannot afford to do that.
Yeah.
So that's off. So now that you're that's off, the next thing is to now ask yourself, okay, what do I need to do next? I think that the one thing that helps a lot is that you get an education. A lot of people shit on going to school, right? And I don't like that, right? And I'm not saying it because you should go there to get some piece of paper or anything. There's something going to university or a tertiary institution does for you, right? It helps you know how to deal with people, basically, right? It helps you know how to handle people, even if you don't get really good at it, but it helps you interact with people beyond your family, beyond the things that you are familiar with, right? It helps you begin to imbibe survival traits. Right, you need to learn how to navigate things, you learn how to navigate issues. Every little bit helps. And then, of course, if you get a piece of paper, by all means, please, if you can get it, by all means, do get it, right? Then, and again, if you think that it is not your thing, by all means, don't do it. But I believe that it helps.
So before you go on, and just to add to education monologue, is that the most underrated thing about education is this. While I was not the most fond of school, but one thing I know about education is this: if you get the right education to help you do three things: how to write well, how to speak well, and how to
Yeah.
think well, critically.
Yeah.
Regardless of what you're studying, if you get those three things, if you go to a
Yeah.
good tertiary institution,
Yeah.
and that's invaluable
Yeah.
in Nigeria.
But then again, it's also important to know that that alone is not going to help you.
Yeah.
On its own, it's going to do little,
Yeah.
right? The next thing is you need to learn, you need to equip yourself with the skill that will help you become valuable to the world.
Yeah.
Very, very important. There are many skills to learn. That learning how to sell is an invaluable skill. And when I talk about sales, a lot of people think it's just about exchanging value for money. Sales is also being able to communicate your ideas.
Yes.
To sell to somebody else, to make people buy you. You know, to make people see you as valuable enough that they want to do stuff with you, right? I mean, I get tons of requests, people asking me to partner with them to do business, and I have to reject like 99% of them. But I know that the reason why they are coming is because I'm valuable.
Yeah.
They know that there's something that my teaming up with them is going to bring to that venture.
Yes.
Right? So learning how to sell is a critical skill. You know, learning how to make people buy your ideas, buy your products. You started this podcast, you know, like I said, the first time I was like, I don't know if this is a good idea. It's not like podcasts are really popular now, but if you stick with it long enough, it probably is going to work. Now it's working, right? But you knew something. You didn't just wake up and say, you know what, I'm going to do a podcast.
Yeah.
You knew there was something in it. You knew that this was an industry. So, I mean, the thing is a huge thing now.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I had someone who has been on my case for 2 years to start a business podcast with him. It's been so now I know it's big. So because it wasn't my thing, I really didn't see. I really didn't see what it was going to be because it wasn't my thing. But you saw it.
Yeah.
So, and it's like that with everything and with everybody. You have got to have some measure of knowledge. You have got to have, and because learning a skill is not just, it's also about knowing what to do, right? Having knowledge in a particular area, right? And basically exploring the shit out of that area that you have knowledge in or you have an interest in, you know, and then making sure, again, because a lot of life is about nuance also, right? Making sure that this thing that you have an interest in and that you're learning, that is going to be applicable 10 and 20 years from now. You don't want something that will be gone in 5 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It has to be here for the long term.
Yeah.
It has to be here for the long term. You have to be looking at what's going to be around in 5, 10, 15, 20 years. Which brings me to the next point. You need to know how our people are sorely lacking in. Our people think so short term that it's incredible that they don't see how bad it is. Right? It was like what we're talking about when we're talking about speed. They just they're just saying 6 months in the future. If they even see that further along anyway.
Yeah. Right?
So, and that makes them make short-term decisions. Right? They can't think. I mean, you've done this podcast now for like 2 years.
3 years. 3 years.
3 years.
Yeah.
There you go. 3 years. Now imagine when you started that you were only thinking about, okay, let's see how it goes in 3 months. Yeah. So in 3 months, maybe you still have 10 listeners in 3 months, and you're like, fuck it, this shit is not going to work. Yeah. So you find something else. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And I've seen people do that many times. Right. So they have a lot of things that they start and dump and start and dump and start and dump. And the funny thing that they don't realize is that time is going. They don't have time. The problem is you think you have time because you are going to die. Yeah. Whether you like it or not. You are just going to die. Yeah. And the worst part of it is you don't even know when. Right? Yeah. But people act like they have forever.
They act like they have
They act like they
forever.
have forever. They act like they have forever. So they start something and then they dump it, and then 5 years passes and they've not moved from where they were 5 years ago. Because they're starting things and ending it, starting things and ending it.
Two things I'll add because you just brought some things to my mind now. The first thing is to buttress your point on the short-term thinking. I think a lot of Nigerians today, especially those who are not as exposed or as literate or educated, or just don't have the level of our mindset, they can't see beyond their current situation. That's the thing. They cannot see beyond where they are, and that lack of vision is stunting. It makes it so that they make decisions that just don't bode well in the long term, because they cannot see beyond the space they are in. They cannot see anything more for themselves. And if you cannot see more for yourself, you cannot make plans in the moment to reach those goals. So now if you have a population that is filled with so many people that cannot see beyond their present situation, then it doesn't bode well for the general future of the country. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
If the individual cannot see beyond their fucking nose, then they're not thinking even. It's not going to affect the long-term future of the country at large. It's telling.
Exactly.
So I've made it my life's goal with this podcast and with a lot of things I do is when I'm talking to people, I'm saying to you, I'm trying to help them see beyond their current situation. I have the privilege, the grace of God that I'm able to think far and wide about different things. And I understand that many people don't have that luxury. So if I'm talking to you or I'm doing a podcast, a lot of the things I'm talking about just help my listeners to elevate their perspective, so to speak. There's more than one way to look at this thing. For example, so just to now segue into the next thing I was going to mention, hard work. People, I don't see the value of hard work anymore. They look at it as suffer head, or I cannot come and kill myself, or people have not. There's a way they say it. People today are interested in everything but committed to nothing. Because hard work is commitment to consistency. It's a commitment to chasing something to the end, even if those around you don't see those possibilities. And a lot of people lack that. They lack that grit, that tenacity, that ability to put your 10 toes down and do what the fuck you're supposed to do to make your life change. And if, like you said, the speed, if it doesn't come in 2 days, in 2 weeks, in 2 months, they move on to the next fad or trend. And that doesn't bode well for anyone trying to thrive in Nigeria.
Exactly. Because you have to, people need to know that Nigeria is a peculiar place. It's a peculiar place that you have to go over and beyond the normal in order to make headway. So if you need to work hard, if other people need to work hard, you need to work very hard. Just because you are here.
Yeah.
Just because you are here. You have to, and then, when I see people say things like, I can't come and kill myself, and all of that, they also don't know that, life is a self-fulfilling prophecy. When you repeat those things, right? And I'm going to start sounding a bit like a motivational speaker, but it's life.
Yeah.
It's life. It is just what it is, right? When I was growing up and I said something like, I can't do something, I want to say, keep quiet. Keep quiet. Don't say you can't do it. I'll say, how can I do it? He said, because it helps you start thinking about solutions. He said, when you say you can't do something, it forces you to take a back seat. And then you sit back and you're like, woe is me. Because then, I will do something and she will look at me and she'll make a face and she will say, woe is me.
She will taunt you for being a weakling.
I'm like, oh, mommy, leave me alone.
I'll tell you a secret, Tim. When I started this podcast, I knew that I would have to give a lot to get even a little back. I already knew that was the challenge ahead of me. I knew that I was only like, no one in my network knew about podcasts. I knew that, Nigerians were late to the party. And I knew that just as you were thinking it in your head that this is a really good idea, this is a good use of time, I was thinking that as well. And I knew that it would be that uphill climb, and I think knowing that, first of all, already like got me ready for it because I knew it would be hard. People start out thinking something will be easy and then they're surprised it's hard. I wasn't surprised about how hard it will be. You understand? So I think part of that mindset is accepting that you're in a place that is hard and not wishing it was different. That's one. Two was, and I noticed about the Nigerian mindset when I got into maybe my 100th episode, or when I would tell people I'm still doing this, or I'm on season 3 or season 4, whatever. Right now, this is season 5. But like season 3 or season 4, people would say to me, wow, you're so consistent. You're so, and I'd be like, why are you guys surprised? And then it dawned on me that people are so unused to committing to things. They're so unfamiliar with that concept of committing to something that you say you're going to do, that when someone else is doing it, it seems like he's doing something that is so out of this world.
Absolutely.
But if I see someone else who is doing something for a long time, I'm not surprised. I understand what it takes and what he's trying to achieve. So I'm not even like saying, oh, wow, you've been doing this. I understand. But people don't understand that in general. So it's a shock. It's a surprise. It's like, oh, my goodness. Let's take a moment to pause and breathe. Relieve the tension. Whatever you're doing, close your eyes. Take a deep breath. In through the nose. Out through the mouth. One more time. In through the nose. Out through the mouth. Let's resume. Wow. Mr. Ronald, this has been, before we go, do you have anything you'd like to know from me? Any question from me? Anything you would like to pick my brain about before we wrap this conversation?
Really, what I would very much like is to interview for my people, especially the podcast, the thought process behind it. You understand business side of it. What's the future platform and all of that. I think, especially because it's also becoming a big thing, I think it should be something that will be valuable to us. I would love to maybe sometime in the future also so that they can also learn from your perspective.
I cannot wait. To talk to you again, Mr. Ronald. Thank you very much for sitting down with me. We planned 2 hours, but look at us going towards 4 hours.
Yeah, I loved every bit of it, my brother.
Thank you very much, Ronald. I owe you one, and I cannot wait to talk to you again. Ladies and gentlemen, Ronald Nzimora, and this is The Young God. Do follow the podcast on IG at The Young God Pod and Twitter at I Am The Young God for more God level content. New episodes drop every Saturday at midnight, so do subscribe and do share. I'm your host, Rodney, and I wish you a blessed day and a blessed mind. Rodney, out.